How about you? How did you get into music?
I've got a fun path in music. I started, like playing recorder as a kid. You know, they put you in that in like first grade, right? That's what they do with kids these days. And I had a ton of fun. I learned to sight read, and I remember my teacher like brought me up, and he was like, "You're sight reading, like that's what it is." And I was like, "Oh, I'm just like looking at notes and playing the thing, like it makes sense." And so I was like first recorder in that little band, and I was like, "Oh, this is fun." And I played like a little show in like first grade, but I didn't really get into it until I saw my cousin playing when I was 10 years old. She was like practicing piano, and I was like, "Whoa, that's so cool! That sounds so pretty. I want to do that." And so I begged my parents to put me into piano lessons, and so at 10 I started piano. I got like a tiny little keyboard to practice on. And I stayed with it for a while until I joined marching band in high school. And when you join marching band, you don't have a life after that because it's practice every day. And then you got games on Fridays. So is what it is. Oh, speaking of which, I should turn off my phone. Very irresponsible.
That's actually a great thing about doing music as a teenager, to sidetrack you real quick, is that we all stayed out of trouble. Because like I was working on playing this little guitar or whatever, instead of being out just roaming the streets, we all kind of had something we had to work on, which is probably good. I
still found time to roam the streets. But yeah, after that, I got really heavy into saxophone. I played a bunch of like, with like jazz bands. We even like went to Disney World and played as a band. We got to play for like a week and like go to Disney World. I was that was like so fun as a kid. But after that, saxophone took over as my whole like musical life, and piano was like in the background. I quit lessons and I started teaching myself until music college. When I got in through a fluke, I didn't want to do music college. I wanted to build robots.
Really?
Specifically robotic limbs. Like I was really heavily into like mechanical and electrical engineering at the time in like high school, and like robotics clubs and science fairs statewide. But this dude who was helping me do my resume for college was like, "Dude, you're like doing all this music," because I was a music teacher at 16.
Oh, I see.
And I was in all these bands. And he was like, "Why don't you apply for music school?" I was like, "What? No way, dude. That's a totally 180 to what I wanted to do." But I took him up in the dare. I applied to 2 music schools. And then I was like, if I get a full ride, then I'll go. And I got a full ride to one.
Hey. Where?
A little place in Texas called University of the Incarnate Word, or UIW.
Wow, nice. That's amazing.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. So I ended up studying music industry studies there. Saxophone primarily, it was my instrument until I switched back to piano like halfway through college, because I was like, it just makes more sense for the crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just all visual.
It's better to know piano than anything else, honestly. Yeah. If I could turn back time.
Yeah.
Because guitar is not a transferable musical skill really to anything else. But you could come up to a xylophone after knowing piano and play xylophone. But sax is probably the same. I imagine like sax, you can't really transfer the skill.
Yeah, you don't even get to see what you're doing. It's just finger patterns. You're like, all right.
Can that transfer to other horns?
Yeah, it does transfer pretty easily to clarinet and flute. Okay. So you're like expected to know those as you get better with it.
I see. Well, that's cool then. Because guitar
I could never do flute
like that, where you can kind of play both if you want to learn one.
Yeah, exactly. But I never wanted to do like writing songs, even in music school. I was like, I'll just be an engineer, sitting behind the board. And then my neighbor knocked on my door one day when I was in like my dorm, and he was like, "Yo, I've got this kid shadowing me, like looking to come to this college, and he wants to do music. He's like a big musician on YouTube." And so he introduced me. He turned out to be a Fandom artist who was writing songs about a show called My Little Pony. Yeah.
There you go.
I was like, that's a thing. Like, I'd heard of the show. I'd heard of bronies, being an internet person. But, like, there was Fandom things. And he was huge. He had, like, millions of plays. And I was like...
That's crazy. That makes sense.
Okay. I'm going to try this. Wow. But not with, like, My Little Pony. I looked at more, like, the community, and I saw people were getting into video games.
Yeah.
And so I found the video game that I liked called Five Nights at Freddy's. It was, like, a dark, scary game. And I wrote a song about that, and it started taking off. we'll get into a whole nother story, another episode about what happened to that and how it helped me. But essentially, that's how I found Fandom music. And then, geez, meeting Paul, that's what
I'm trying to do now is fan music, or meme music now is the next step. But same kind of thing. It's funny how effective it is or whatever. It gets to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are fans of this other thing. So now they can hear your song, which is pretty cool. It's an interesting way. It's an interesting, different approach towards it.
It is.
But yeah. And then meeting Paul was a total fluke. Like I was telling you guys before the episode started, I had applied to Warner Music for their movie cinema music house.
Yeah, like Sync.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And I got accepted like randomly, like a month after I applied. And they're like, you start next week. And I was like, what? So when I told them, can I get another week? And they're like, oh, I thought you had an in-person interview here. You said you lived here. And I was like, no, we didn't have an in-person interview.
That's so bad.
And then they're like, oh, I think we made a mistake here.
But they still basically had to let you?
Yeah. So luckily at that time I was taking a entertainment law class, and I told my professor, who was my lawyer, he's still kind of my lawyer. And he's like, listen, you just quit 4 of your jobs. You put in all this work to make this happen. And like the ball's already rolling with your class. Like they need to do something for you.
Yeah, sure.
So they sent out my resume to all the studios that Warner Music owns, and Atlantic Records ended up picking me up.
Amazing.
It is crazy how it's all random when you look back at it. But it is all intention. It's like
for sure.
It's all just aiming yourself towards
only redirected.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you.
Be here all night.